Okay. Well, my internet is going in and out, so I recorded about 7 minutes of presentation and then my internet died. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit to what I was talking about in the last little chunk of this presentation. So we were talking about um communicating in destructive ways when we're angry and how this creates a back and forth between the parents and child where they're saying things that are inappropriate to each other, things that just are not helpful. And then we moved on to starting to talk about effective communication and what that looks like. And I compared effective communication in a business setting to effective communication in a family setting. And there's actually a lot of parallels because effective communication in the business setting improves decision making, productivity, workflow, business relations, control of the business, the image of the business, and the responses that the business receives, and the problems that the business and its employees can solve. But families work in a pretty similar fashion, even though we don't measure them in the same ways. Like with productivity, for example, a productive business will probably sell lots of stuff that it's trying to sell or do whatever it is doing. Whereas a productive family, you could measure that in how many activities they do together and how much fun they have together, or how well the family manages taking care of the house together, cooking meals together, things like that. And consistency in workflow for a business, for in a family setting, that would be consistent with how smooth how smoothly you go through the household chores and how well family members work as a team to get things done. So hopefully that comparison makes things more um, understandable. And hopefully I did not just make everything more complicated than it needs to be. But so we're moving on to some harmful practices in communication. And these are things that are common, but nonetheless, they drive children away from their parents. This includes lecturing, moralizing, preaching, and interrogating. And what this can sound like as a parent are phrases like, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times, can't you get it through your head? Things like that. You should be ashamed of yourself. Look at what you've done. These are just things that, like, they're common, but when kids are young, um, it, these kinds of phrases don't help the parent communicate. Discounting, placating, providing empty reassurances. These are also just not helpful. Sometimes when you tell a kid that there's no reason to be upset, they may really think that they have a reason to be upset and they don't want to feel like you're discounting their feelings. Or if you placate and tell a child who's maybe angry or frustrated about something, or maybe having a tantrum, if you just placate and say, well, whatever makes you happy, then you're showing the child that tantruming or getting upset is a valid way of getting what you want. Um, and providing empty reassurance sometimes sounds like everything will be okay. And lots of people have suffered through worse. And you don't really accomplish anything by telling a child something like that. Maybe temporarily you reassure them, but this is just kind of like putting a band-aid on something that needs more than a band-aid. Here are some more harmful communication practices. Judging, condemning, threatening. Sometimes it sounds like, You'll never amount to anything. Try that again and you'll be grounded for a week. These are just judgmental comments, threatening comments. Blaming, criticizing, ridiculing. It's all your fault. You're so irritating. I can't stand it when you whine like that. Placing all emphasis on your own feelings when the child needs to share his or her feelings is also a pretty harmful practice. For example, if your teenager had just gone on a first date and it was really awkward and they came home and they were just like, oh, I'm so embarrassed of myself. That was awful. And you said, oh, I know exactly what that feels like because, and then you just went on and on about maybe one of your dating experiences. And then you just turned the conversation into your own little story hour. Your teenager probably will not appreciate that very much. So let's do a learning activity. This is recognizing harmful communication practices. So think back to your own childhood and the many different adults you communicated with. This includes your parents, school teachers, neighbors, church leaders, sports coaches, musical instructors, etc. Do you have any memories of moments in which they used harmful communication practices with you? Write down what happened, how you felt at the time, and how you would have handled things differently if you had been the adult in that situation. And of course, you can just write that in a personal journal. You could write that in the comments. You could send it to me by email or in a handwritten letter. That would be great. Now let's do another activity. Okay, so stopping harmful communication practices. Consider how the following scriptures apply to you. Those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart. And this is Matthew 15, verse 18. What thoughts, attitudes, and desires affect the way you communicate with family members? If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. This is James 3, verse 2. Consider how well you manage your feelings to avoid giving offense, particularly when children do things that are offensive. Write down the inappropriate communication practices you have used. This list will help you remember not to repeat these practices. What is the first step in improving communication? Recognizing what you have done incorrectly. Then you can make a serious effort to stop saying and doing these things. Be persistent in your personal changes, even if children continue to misbehave. All right, let's see if oh no, my video did not load. I had a YouTube video. Oh, the person who put this YouTube video up does not want people to put it into their PowerPoints, I guess. But I guess I will just have to describe what happens. So if you've ever seen the TV show Mad Men, there is a scene where the daughter, Sally, she's like probably 7 or 8 in this scene. She steals a cigarette from her mom's purse and she goes in the bathroom and closes the door and lights it up. And then, but this is inside the house. So the mother smells the smell, bursts into the bathroom right away, pulls her out, and puts out the cigarette and starts spanking her and telling her that she was gonna burn the house down. And then Sally says, "You're mean." And the mom, Betty, says, "You betcha." And I think it's just one of the funniest scenes, but it's less funny when you can't actually see it. But if you have time, you can search for the Mad Men scene. Sally smokes a cigarette. It's from the show Mad Men. Anyway, the point of the video was that um I want to just point out things that the mom says to the daughter that just were not as effective as they could have been. Um, all right. So we will move on from that to Christ-like communication. Parents who communicate in a Christ-like manner can fulfill their sacred duty to rear their children in love and righteousness and teach their children to love and serve one another, to observe the commandments of God, and to be law-abiding citizens. The values and beliefs that parents hold dear are more likely to be transmitted to children with a caring, sensitive exchange of information. This is so because the willingness of children to listen and talk often depends on the climate for communication that parents create in the home. Jesus Christ is our Savior, our Redeemer, and our greatest example. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Jesus was the only perfect person to ever walk the earth. He provided the supreme example. All people should strive to be like him in words and in deeds. That is Christ-like communication. So, what was Jesus like? He was slow to condemn, as with the woman taken in with adultery, which you can read about in John 8, 3 through 11. He was forgiving, as when he sought the Father's forgiveness for the crucifiers. And this can be found in Luke 23, 33 through 34. He was compassionate, as when he wept with Mary and Martha over Lazarus's death. He was considerate of his family, as when he made provisions for his mother while he was on the cross. He was willing to return good for evil, as when he healed the ear of one of his captors. He was loving of children, as shown by his blessings to them. He was appreciative, as when he praised the woman who anointed him with oil. He was eager to serve, as when he washed his disciples' feet, teaching them to serve others. He was willing to sacrifice, as shown by his atoning for the sins of the world. All right, so the attributes of Christ that make up effective communication are faith, hope, charity, love, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, brotherly kindness, humility, and diligence. In Doctrine and Covenants, section 4, verses 5 through 6, we read, "And faith, hope, charity, and love, with an eye single to the glory of God, qualify him for the work. Remember faith, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, brotherly kindness, godliness, charity, humility, and diligence. Ask and ye shall receive, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Amen." Challenge yourself to commit to one attribute each day and pray for opportunities to continue practicing being Christ-like. All right. So, President David O. McKay once said that no man or woman can sincerely resolve to apply to his or her daily life the teachings of Jesus Christ without sensing a change in his or her own nature. The phrase born again has a deeper significance than many people attach to it. As parents follow the teachings of Christ, they can be born again when they welcome children into the world and commit to raising them with Christ-like love. We can overcome ineffective and harmful communication practices and acquire godly attributes to become more able to manage personal feelings and respond to the behaviors of our children and others. Parents who follow the teachings of Christ are also more apt to respond appropriately when children are disrespectful or unruly. Okay, so here is another learning activity, assessing the quality of your communication. Consider these questions. Do your children believe you are interested in what they say? Are you interested in their activities, goals, and achievements? And do you express your interest in a way they can understand? So, with that one, I would like to add sometimes parents think that they express interest in their children's activities, but the children don't pick up on it. And a really good example I have for this is that oftentimes parents will sign their kids up for different sports and different activities. And, they parents have to put up with a lot. They have to drive their kids to soccer practice. They have to pay for music lessons. All these things cost time, money, effort. The parents are patient. The parents put a lot of effort into their children's activities. But sometimes children don't understand that that does equate to being interested in them. They might think that you aren't interested in what they do or that you don't care very much because maybe you missed one of their soccer games or maybe you've missed 3 soccer games, even though you keep paying for soccer for the soccer team. You always drive them to soccer practice. So there's things that parents do that require a lot of time and effort and patience and sometimes even money that children just don't understand that this also contributes. So sometimes you have to go the extra mile and make sure your children actually understand that yes, you do take an interest in them and in the things that they want to do and in the things that they are doing. All right, so continuing on though, do they feel comfortable talking with you about their personal problems and needs? Can they ask you sensitive questions without being criticized or chastised? If you answered yes to these questions, your children probably also listen to you and accept the values and beliefs you teach. But continuing on with the assessment, to double check your own perception, it's important that you discuss your answers to the okay. Um, I'm not sure if that went through or not. So, uh,